Hi, it's John from Crafts by John UK. Today's card is this adorable little dragon and the sentiment saying, hey Grumpy. He's kind of peeking around a corner. That's what's led me to this design where I've got half my card with a kind of ink splat smush and my little dragon peeking out from behind something. We're not really quite sure. I've coloured the dragon in using my ProMarker pens, a variety of colours you'll see here. And I've created this effect using two different Distress Oxides. This is the stamp set and it has a matching set of dies, which is really good, so you can cut that out. But you can see he's an adorable little critter. I've coloured him in with my ProMarkers and then just stuck him slightly mounted, not with using foam pads, just so he's slightly above the surface. But that's quite a cute card, I think you'll agree. Made in about 35 minutes. If you're interested to see how I did it and all the techniques I use, lots of tips along the way, stay tuned. Okay, let's get started. So, first things first, I need to stamp my little dragon onto a scrap piece of card. I've got my stamping platform and I've got just a piece of normal card here. This is a watercolour card that I use quite a lot. I really like it. It's good for, obviously, watercolours, but also I really like it for colouring generally. So the stamp set here, this is the one I'm going to use. These are all kind of peeking over an edge. So I think there's something there around the dragon coming in the side or down from the top or up from the bottom. So that's what we're going to kind of work with. So I've got my dragon and I'm just going to pop him down on the piece of paper. Now, because there's a coordinating die set for this, I do need to make sure my dragon is kind of laying in the right angle, because you can, obviously, there's a bit of movement. So you kind of just need to make sure he's like absolutely in the right place. So it's not a bad idea to just sit the die on top and just check. On a stamp and a die like this, it's good to line up the line because that's an absolute key point. So just make sure the head looks about in the right place, which I think it is. Okay, cool. So I'm going to close my stamping platform, and then I'm just going to ink him up. Apologies, that's slightly off camera, but just basically inking him up, and I'm using a VersaFine black onyx ink, just the basic stuff. Cool, right. Let's stamp him. Just give it a moment for, obviously, the ink to do its stuff. And while that's going on, I'm just going to grab my clear embossing powder, which those who watch my videos will know I keep in a nice big tub. So let's just check that that's stamped. Looks like it has. Not straight on the piece of paper, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so let's dunk him in the embossing powder. And this is a lot easier than doing it on paper, trying to get it back into the tub, or using a coffee making piece of paper, whatever, round. I can't be dealing with all that. Anyway, there we are, we're stamped. So now all I'm going to do is just heat emboss it using my heat gun. This is a Dovecraft one. So apologies for the noise, but I want to heat him because I want the black to be nice and glossy. I want the lines to be nice and clear, and I also want to colour him. So I'm going to colour him using ProMarker alcohol pens this time, and I want something to colour up to. By heat embossing him, this is a good little tip, it lifts the ink slightly and it gives you an edge to colour up to. So it's really handy for colouring because it gives you a little border to kind of work up to. So it doesn't take long to heat emboss, and you can see now he's kind of really nice and strong. I'm just going to also do the back. Right, he's done. Let's just clean our stamp, just using a cloth. People, if you watch my videos, you'll know I favour a cloth over whites because they're better for the environment, and also you don't get a lot of loose fibres which you get from wet wipes. Okay, let me just pop the stamp out of the way. Now, the first thing I'm going to do before I start any colouring is just check that this cuts well, because there's nothing worse than spending all your time colouring in a central focal point. Then you cut it and you screw up the cutting, and it's not even. So and that would then be a waste because you can't really use it. So the better thing to do is to actually cut it first and colour it when it's already been cut. So I'm just kind of lining that up, just to have a look. Again, it's not super precise, but it needs to be roughly in the right place. So what I'm going to do, because I want to hold it, I'm going to just use some low tack tape. I've got this yellow tape here. I know a lot of people use the blue tape from scrapbook.com, which I also do use myself, the mint tape. That's also a really good tape. This one is just a low tack yellow. I can't even remember where I bought it, to be honest. But anyway, you don't need much of it. Just take a couple of pieces off. And what we want to do is just stick that down somewhere where it will kind of ensure that we're cutting in the right place. So I'm looking through this very fine line just to get him lined up as best I can. So stick there and give it a good press down. We're holding on obviously to the paper and the die. So just check he's still in the right place, which he is. And then I'm going to go there. Obviously, stick outside the die because that's the bit that we're going to chuck away. If you get any residue on that paper, it really doesn't matter. So put him mostly outside. Right, I'm just going to die cut him. I've got my Gemini under the table. Just going to slide him gently so nothing moves and just run him through my Gemini machine. I favour the Gemini. I know a lot of people don't like it, they prefer Big Shot, etc. But I really like Gemini. Never had any problems with mine. And I'm using the same plates I've been using, I think, for the last 3 years. I know a lot of people complain about the plates. What I will maybe do one day is a video about how to fix your plates if they get warped, which you can do with a wet towel, boiling water, and an iron. I know it sounds intriguing. Let me know if you'd be interested to see that video. Okay, moment of truth. So let's have a look how he's cut. You don't really know until you press it out, so there we go. Yeah, he's fine. A little bit tight there, but generally you've got a border all the way around, which is the main thing. So that's him done. And now we can colour, and then we need to also create some kind of a layer background for him to sit on. So I've got a piece of white cardstock. I'll tell you how I'm planning this out. I'm going to colour him, and then I'm going to sit him central in the card. I'm going to cover this half of the card, and then I'm just going to do like a green effect here with a couple of different Distress Oxides, which I've got here. I want this side of the card to be white, and I want this side of the card kind of out from him to be green, and then I'm going to put some kind of sentiment down the bottom. The stamp set, which I got from either Temu or Shine or AliExpress, I can't really remember, does have some sentiments on it. Sorry life is dragging you down, get better soon, you're so hot, grr, hey grumpy. So I think I'm probably going to use the hey grumpy because I think that's quite cute. So I'm probably going to put that one down there, which I'll do later. Cool. So let's get on with our colouring. So I've got a selection here of ProMarkers, and I'm going to use a green palette. So I've picked out a nice light green, and then I've got a couple of different shades of green. On something like this, to get texture, you really need to darken the edges, lighten the middles, and then you want something else with a bit of colour. So I'm imagining the lime green will probably be the underbelly, and maybe the horns and this area around the ears. And then the spines I would probably do in one of the greens, but then I will use both greens on the other areas to create a blend. And then I've got like a blush colour or satin to do the eyes and, well, that's about it, the eyes and the teeth. I think these are teeth. I'm assuming this one is not tooth. I think that's part of ear or jowl, the other side. So I'm going to colour that in the same way. So I'm going to start off with my darkest green. So I've got the olive green and I've got the forest green. If I take a piece of cardstock, I have done multiple videos about colouring, but I'll just show you how I blend these. So I'll start off with the olive green. So if I put like a layer of olive green down, Then I go in with my forest green. I would go over my forest green and then extend the forest green into a new area. Go back and finish on the olive green. And this same rule applies. Lime green, if I start over the top of my forest green, go to my lime green, across the area you're going to colour, and then go back. And you see, it does soften, but you have the point of me showing you this is there are limits to how these pens will blend. This dark green, because this other green is quite dark, they will blend together. But obviously, the lime green is just too far. So I would normally do this. I would put the dark colour down, blend the light colour across it and into the area, and then put the dark colour down again at the edge. And I'll show you exactly how I'm going to do that. So we need to be a little bit precise on our dragon because he's quite small now, he's cut. So anyway, I'm going to just work with the normal end. Obviously these pens have a square end and a pointed end. If you've got the more modern ones, they'll actually have a brush end. So I'm just going to start going around the edge of my stamped image. So I want dark colour on all the edge basically. And I'm not colouring, I mean, you have to take care, but you can see I'm quite kind of cavalier when it comes to colouring. The brow, we would want quite dark. Excuse me while I cough. And we'll put a bit of colour up here and behind these little horns at the top. So we've now got a layer of colour all the way around. Now, any lines like this is a clue to you to colour that area. So that's the detail on the stamp, and the detail needs colour. So that's the first area I would do. That is self-contained, and I can deal with that area in one time, basically. So that's my first piece. I'll then go in with my mid-green, and I go over the top of the area I've just coloured. So I'm going over that area, but then I'm also going into the center where I have no color at all. And you can see the difference in the color because this has got the darker underneath it, this is lighter. So that is kind of how you create that depth effect. That's how you get darkened edges and lighter middles. And this is what we want when we're coloring. We want like a 3D realism effect. We want, you know, different shades of color. It gives us depth, just brings stuff to life. There we go. So you can see I'm going over where I've coloured. I'm always going over that first, treating each area as if it's almost a separate panel, blending in and just going over. So you see you naturally get lightness in the middle, and then you can then go around the edge again and bring the added darkness back. So I'm just going to do that area in the green, and I just need to finish this brow. So that's a layer of dark, then a layer of mid green, and I'm now going to go back in with the olive green again. So I'm going to go back over those areas I'd already done. Don't be alarmed if it looks like I'm now laying down another line, because what I will do is I will then dot with the other green. So I'm going to go back in on the eyebrow over here because we want a little bit of shade there. And then around this mouth, a little bit there. But then take the light or the mid green again and now dot around here. And what you'll find is that will help the blend. You end up with the darkness which you want. If you want, you can colour obviously a whole area again if you want a little bit deeper colour, but that will dry, and what you'll see is you end up with a slightly different contrast of colour around the edge. So again, let's move our way down. We're going to do the body. So let's go on the outside. There we go. I'm going to do that piece, and then I'm going to come down here to this piece and just kind of follow the shape around down at the tail. There we go. And then again, in with the mid green. Go straight over the dark colour first, and then do the lighter colour, which is that mid, because we want a bit of contrast. That's what this is all about. Okay, so over the dark colour first, kind of wake it up again, and then colour the more general area. If people do need help with colouring, let me know in the comments, and I could actually do maybe a more focused video just on this in a bit more detail, but obviously this is just one piece of card making in this video. There we go. So I've done both colours. So again, I'll pick up my dark one, go back in with my dark one, just along one side where I really want to highlight the fact that, you know, we're working with two different colours. And in some places you blend it in some places you can leave it. It just depends on the look you want to achieve. If you want a fully blended look, obviously you have to go back in. But if you do, maybe do what I've done and just do the kind of the dots and the dabs. When you dry, you'll see that ends up with quite a lot of contrast. Right, the light green we're going to use in other little places. So actually here, what we might do is maybe just do a dot of the mid green and then use the light green over the top of that. We know, don't we? We know it's not going to blend particularly well, but that will give that a little bit of depth if it gets darker in the corner. So just lay that light green down, go over that mid green, and do you see what I mean? It just gives it that little bit of depth in the corner. Missed a little bit there, but I'm just now going to touch that over. There we go. And then we're going to use this on this bit just to give some contrast. So the underbelly of the dragon is going to be a lime green. Underbelly there, a little tiny bit of underbelly there. If you don't worry if you go over the other colour with this lime green, because they're all in the same colour palette, that really won't matter. Okay, so I think what we'll do here, we'll just do a little bit of light green where we have shading, and then we'll use this colour, which is a blush. I'm going to actually use 3 different colours on this. I'm going to go over the green with a blush, and then I'm going to use satin, which is quite a nice sort of neutral colour. I'm going to start by going over what I've already coloured. So again, this is to kind of get that blend. So I'm going into the green, and I'm also going over the slightly pinky colour, but I'm finishing in the area that this colour is actually dominant. So starting that side, blending into that side, starting there, blending to there. There we go. So we end up with a kind of a fade. So we've got a bit of green, we've got a bit of pink in there, and that's absolutely fine. We could add a bit more green in if we wanted. If you're going to do that, I would literally just dot and dab. You're just adding a tiny little bit more in. We need to colour the hands in. The hands would be, in effect, the mid-green only. I'm not going to put any shade on those so that they end up a little bit lighter. There we go. And then we need to do the teeth, which we're going to just do in the satin colour. So I'm just going to... And the eyes I'm going to do in the satin colour as well. What I might do is just put a tiny little bit of blush in the eyes, in that middle bit, and then just blend that again, dotting, just to give that a little bit more contrast. I think we've missed one here, then one little tiny ear bit there, and then we need to do the scales, which I think we'll just do in the darker, or these spines, I'm not really sure what they are, but we'll do them just in the darker colour. Where it's a small area and it's quite hard to colour, just dot. That's the easiest way to do it. You can obviously use the fine tip end of the square cut in this pen, but once you're kind of used to it, you can do it just dotting with this fine end. This is an older ProMarker, so it's actually got this shaped end, but you will notice if you buy them now, the new ones have all got a longer, kind of finer brush tip with a slightly finer point, which is actually useful. There we go. And then I'm just going to give a little bit more shade at that bottom bit. There we go. And then I just need to finish off with the nails, which we will do in satin as well. In there. There we go. I've missed a bit actually, haven't I? I've missed this green bit here, which would be just that basic green. There we go. So there is our little dragon. Actually, just let me grab a little bit more light. There we go. So you can see him hopefully quite nicely coloured. And you can see that the contrast isn't huge, but you can definitely see there's one colour and a second. There's one colour and a second. If you wanted to darken it further and have a little bit more contrast, you could happily do that just by going in with the darker pen over the top. The only thing to bear in mind now is because the colours underneath are dry, it will stick out a lot more. So you definitely need to go back in with the other middle colour. When you've just coloured it, the contrast isn't so great because it's still kind of drying and still absorbing. It will look horrendous when you do it, but actually once it dries, it kind of ends up okay. There you go. So you can see now we've got way more contrast there. If I dry that gently with my heat tool, you'll see it does end up looking, it does die down, but it does leave it looking quite a lot darker. So what you might want to do in that scenario is just actually take that middle colour and just colour in that middle area again. By doing that, you kind of even it out basically. I mean, the more you can keep going with this forever, the more you do, the more depth you get. And don't forget to work in that second colour. So I want a bit of darkness on this nose, so I'm just going to kind of blend that in a little bit at the bottom. There we go. That's going to give us a bit more. Okay, so that's our colouring done. I can put my pens to the side now. Let me just give him a bit of a blow. It's easiest to just put him on one side, let him dry naturally. So now we need to look at our main card piece. So we're going to position our dragon in the middle. So we kind of need to mark off the middle side over to this direction. So I'm going to use my tape. I'm going to find an end. I haven't really thought too much about this piece yet, but I do want a straight line down that middle piece because the dragon image has got that dead straight line down it. So I think that would be quite good. So I'm going to just use my grid. This isn't a centimetre grid, which is annoying, but anyway. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. So the centre is 5.5. So in that scenario, because I haven't got an exact 5.5 measure, I'll actually just move the paper and then use this middle line, which I know would be in effect the centre. So pop that down, top and bottom, get it obviously aligned, stretch it to make sure it's in the right place. So that's now our centerpiece. So the dragon will go in effect on that line, and we want the color out this side. So I'm just going to grab a couple of smoothies. I keep my smoothies in a little pot. That's a handy tip because it keeps them juicy, which is quite good and stops them drying out completely. I'm going to take a couple of different greens. I think I've probably got a couple of greens in here somewhere. That's a blue, that's a purple, that's a yellow. I thought I had 2 greens, but no, maybe I'll use that one. Okay, so I've got 2 different coloured greens. Just grab those. So what I'm going to do, I want the darker colour, which will be, I think, the peeled paint in the centre and the crushed olive coming out from it. So I'm going to get a piece of scrap of the same card. In fact, I'm going to use the back of this piece where I was colouring because I don't want to waste stuff. And I'm going to just test what these look like. So this is the peeled paint, which is that colour, which is kind of like a mid-green. This is the crushed olive, which I believe, if memory serves me correctly, apologies that my dog is barking, I'm not quite sure why. That's a kind of quite a light colour. So let's have a look to see what's going on. Nothing. And what Oscar is playing at, I'm not quite sure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do some inking with the smoothies, and then I will take a piece of acetate I'll put some ink on there, spritz it, and then I will blob as well, just to create a really interesting effect on this side. But first of all, to start off with, I'm going to just use the crushed olive. Sorry, the peel paint. So I've got the peel paint. Apologies, you can't see this. It's just slightly above, but I want you to be able to see the area I'm working in. So I'm going to start with my peel paint, and I'm just daubing the colour, starting in the middle so that it's darkest in the centre, and then working my way out so that it kind of naturally fades out as I go. I don't want this to be too precise. I want it to be slightly mussy. So that's probably as much as I'm going to do. And then I'm going to do the same with the crushed olive. I'm going to go in and I'm going to go back over this other green, but I'm also going to just put that kind of around the edges. So just want to get a bit of variation in that colour. And then I'm going to go back in again with the peel paint on the top, just to darken that centre slightly. There we go. You can actually pull and drag, so I'm just actually gliding the actual smoothie. Right, now I'm just going to dry that quickly. Go. And then what I want to do, I'm going to do the lighter colour on the acetate. So I've got my acetate. I'm going to just smush it down, and I've got separate videos all about this on my YouTube channel, so check that out. So I've got just a little bit of ink on my acetate, and then I'm going to just spritz that with a bit of water. The trick to not ending up with a square on your project, if you haven't watched my other videos, is to fold it like that. And then what we do is we put it down, but we don't touch the whole thing. There we go, and I'm kind of trying to create a kind of slightly kinetic movement where it's coming out, basically. That's probably as much as I want to do. I know this looks probably a little bit strange at the moment, but hopefully it will end up looking how I want. So I'm going to dry it. Apologies for the noise. Give that a dry. I could add more. I could do some splats with an actual paintbrush, but I don't want to overdo it. I think that's probably quite enough, in all honesty. And then while I've got my heat tool for good measure, I'm just going to heat the tape, because if you heat the tape, it warms the adhesive up, makes it slightly easier to pull off. There we go. And then we end up with a lovely, nice, clean line. Our dragon can sit in the middle, and that's the effect we're going to go for. So what I need to do now is just stamp the sentiment. Just giving the card a little bend. That's really nice, actually. I'm really happy with that. I'm going to use my stamping platform again, just in case. At this point in the card, I don't want to risk screwing anything up. So I'm going to use my platform, and that gives me the option, if I need to stamp a couple of times. I just need to lay my dragon down just to see what he's going to look like. So he's going to be kind of in that area. So I need to just work out where I'm going to put my Hey Grumpy. I think probably there, right next to him. So I think somewhere like that. I think that would look nice, quite nice and balanced. So I'm going to stick that down, and then I'm actually going to pop my stamping platform out. Now, this is a good tip to check you've got things level. Have a look at where your stamp is in relation to the grid. And that's the good thing about this stamping platform. Actually turn it over so you can see what I mean. That Hey Grumpy, you can see where that is in relation to the lines on this stamping platform. That tells you whether you're wonky or not. So that's a useful tip to flip that out. The other thing I'm going to do before I stamp this, because I've never used this stamp, this is the first time I'm using it, I'm going to give it a spritz, and I'm going to give it a wipe with the cloth, because a lot of time they come out of the production process, they've got dust on them, etc. So I'm just going to give it a good wipe. And then what I will also do, I'm just going to check again that it's in the right place. I don't want it to be wonky now because I've fiddled with it. what I'm also going to do is put a piece of paper down on top of my project and stamp it on a piece of paper before I actually stamp it and commit to the card. So I'm just going to move my dragon out of the way. He's done. I'm just going to lay a piece of paper down here, and then I'm going to stamp. Now I'm going to grab my green ink. Because obviously the dragon, oh sorry, I've just hit the camera there, sorry. Because the dragon is green and we've got a lovely green splat that we've just created, I think that the text will look quite nice in green. So I just want to check that that stamps okay. Hey Grumpy. Yeah, so I just need to wash this side a little bit. So what I might do actually is just move my magnet to there. It's always good to practice if you're uncertain. So actually the other thing I need to do is also use my anti-static mat, just in case I've got any grease on my project from my hands or any kind of effect really. So I'm going to ink up my sentiment again, and then just pressing that down. Let the ink just sit on the paper. There we go. Hey Grumpy. Have a look at it. That top edge slightly faint, so I will just give that a couple of little presses down. I think that's probably fine. There we go. And what I'm not going to do with this, because I stuck all the paper on the, sorry, all the tape on here, I don't really want to emboss it. I could do, but I think I might just leave it actually as it is. I quite like it looking like that. So I'll put my platform away now, and it's time to actually assemble the card. I'm just going to give my surface a wipe. There we go. Right. So how are we going to mount him? Are we going to lift him up? We could lift him up, but I think he's going to just be fine stuck down. So what I'm going to do, and I've used the same paper, so these areas that are up part of the die cut, they'll kind of blend into the background, which is good. So I've got my ink, my glue. I've got it in a little Pintail bottle. This is just basic PVA. You do not need all these fancy glues that cost a fortune. So just PVA, blob that down. And what you'll see is I'm kind of going around the edges. You don't need a ton of glue to make a piece of paper stick to a piece of paper. You just need to get glue, a tiny piece of glue, in all the right places. So make sure you get to the ends, the extremities. Obviously put a little bit in the middle, but you don't need acres and acres of glue that some people do. There we go. This is a really handy little Pintail bottle. You can get these from Amazon and card making supply websites, but they are really good for fine work. At the point when I've got the glue on, I then start working with tweezers because I just think it's easier. Right, so I need to just line him up, really by eye. There we go. And then I would use a scrap piece of paper, which is a piece of rubbish, lay it on top, and then just press him down. By using a piece of paper like this, any glue that comes out from underneath, even though it dries clear, will potentially stay on the paper. So that's a good way to do it. Also, it's just good because it means if your hand's got any dirt on or anything, you're not transferring it onto your lovely die cut focal point. So there we go. There we go, he's stuck down. So he's looking good. Now the decision around, do I ink edges or not? I think actually in this scenario, I'm just gonna leave him quite clean because I quite like the look of it. What I've got is a green 6-inch card blank. So we're going very much with the green theme this time. I'm just gonna fold that card blank and using a bone folder, just make sure I've got a nice crisp fold. There we go. And I'm not going to do, I don't think I'm going to do a layer underneath him. I think it's such a bold image. I quite like it actually how it is. So this is clean. I know it is because I've just taken it out of the cupboard. So I can actually just lay him down. And then I've got my double-sided tape. And I'm just going to tape him up. I'm moving the card around because that way I'll know the card is the right way up for the image to go on. I think we've all been there, stuck our panel on the card in the wrong way around, which is great. So, hey, we learn from our mistakes. So, all down the edges, and the piece in the middle for luck. There we go. And no, I've ended up the wrong way around. How the hell I did that, I don't know. But anyway, so now at this point I flip it over. So I'm going to do obviously the little bunny ears trick here, which you'll know about if you've watched any of my other videos. This is a really handy little trick for getting things perfectly square. Oh, and that was a little bit too much of a pull. I've clearly pulled the tape off, which is clever. So I'm going to stick that back on again. Sorry about that. There we go, that's better. So we should now be able to flip that. Just check again that you're the right way around. Have a look at your card. See, there's a mark there. There's nothing on the back. So actually I will use that as the front because then I can cover that up. So drop this down, and I will stand up for this piece because obviously the camera is filming in the way, and just jimmy it around until you're happy it's in the middle. There we go, pop your hand down and then pull these tapes. Press those edges down, and then once we've done that, we just get our bone folder. We just go lightly along those edges, making sure that the tape is fully stuck to the background. There we go, and there's our card. I'll just grab a piece of kind of neutral coloured cardstock just to show you, just lift that up a little bit. So we've got our lovely dragon, and he's kind of peeking out from somewhere. Hey Grumpy is the sentiment, and then we've got our burst of green obviously on the side. So hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, maybe give me a thumbs up, like, and subscribe to my channel. That way you'll get notified of future videos. There's lots of videos on there showing different techniques and different tricks in card making that I've found along my journey, which might be useful to you. And if you want to see any particular videos with any techniques, colouring or splats or whatever, have a look and see if there's one there. If not, just comment and ask, and I keep an eye on that, and I'll potentially do you a future video. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. Thanks for your time today, and I'll catch you soon.